the third day of the pilot, it was already working. We were standing on the Chicago River, and I turned to Peter Jankowski, who is the president of Walcombs, and I said, there are 3 shows here. And he said, can we, let's get through the pilot. I was just saying, because it was so obvious a night of first, not even a night, but a group of shows that are all about first responders, very much in my wheelhouse and what I like doing shows about. From your mouth to Mr. Nielsen's ear, that we end up owning Wednesday night. I love it, and I hope the Chicago shows all run for, let's see, I guess Fire another 15, PD another 16. Everybody tied at 20. That'd be great.
The last season, it just ended so sadly with the death of Olinsky, and he was so beloved by everybody in the force, and it was a really, really powerful way to end the season. So that sort of was the end, and now we pick up literally days later is the beginning of our 6th season, and so it's still very much in that mode of grief, and also trying to find out what happened and like that. Last time you saw my character, I was crying because he was no longer with us, and Voight and Olinsky and Platt all kind of came up together, so it was very personal, I think, for Platt. So that's pretty much where I left off. Also, it's very important to Platt that Olinsky also get exonerated, so that his widow can get his pension and whatnot. And so, and Platt's always keeping a very close eye on Voight, because he's also incredibly volatile, because he's not feeling great. So there's a lot of tension in the beginning of this season. There's a lot going on. I just hope I'm always working with the team, and that the personal relationships that I get to have in the force get to continue, because those, for me, are probably the most fun. Well, it's hard because the team depended so much on his leadership, and the team is sort of split about how Voight is handling things right now since Olinsky's death. So it's creating a lot of tension.
Well, it's actually quite a big deal. It's a big difference. But I'm leading a team of detectives and officers. And the most important thing in portraying that is just trying to be as authentic and realistic as possible. I mean, and we have Brian Luch, who's our technical advisor and now a producer, because I think he's the heartbeat of the show. Because what keeps it good, I think, is the authenticity. That's kind of the baseline thing that we're not willing to compromise. Well, in the last season, for the entire cast and crew and the entire production, I think it was doing a season's like a marathon. And so at the end of the season, you're kind of panting and, trying to get your kick to finish strong, do your best. And losing Elias took the wind out of all of us, because we all love him and miss him still. And that mirrored what was going on with the characters. The loss of Alvin Olinsky was, too much to deal with, really. It's too much for us all to, fully confront and handle. So I think that we're all going to be, scarred or coping to some degree for a long time, if not forever. Listen, Voight does whatever he doesn't, he lives in this present moment. And being able to be in the present moment makes you aware of things that other people aren't. You know, like great basketball players and athletes, it's like slow motion. And so they're able to see the ball coming and know it's going to be a curve, and that's why they hit so well. Because it's slow motion, they can see the seam spinning, and they can shut it down. And I think at a certain point when Voight becomes single-minded and focused, he has that kind of an ability as a cop. And so he does, but, you know, he doesn't think about the future or the past. He's so present in this moment. Sometimes that's makes him make a mistake, because what's right now might not be right later. But he did what he thought was right. Or the way I imagine it, you know, and it's yet to unfold, like any relationship. But, you know, I don't like to look at things as black and white, and I hope our show doesn't either. It's all gray. That's something I've said since the beginning, and I think it works. So, and I think a kind of a theme maybe for this season will be that the best thing you can be is you. And so Brendan and I might have similar intentions in terms of making Chicago a better, safer place, but we have different ways of going about it. So there will be conflict, and we're both strong, or both characters are strong, so they're willing to fight for what they believe, and I'm sure it'll be some sparks are flying. Well, yeah, there's going to be an investigation. Anytime there's a cop uses his gun, there's an investigation. And there's people who are saying that they witnessed the thing and that the guy was, you know, surrendering and there was no reason to shoot him. So there's definitely going to be an investigation. Voight he's a little more animalistic. He's a little bit more savage. He's a little bit more hungry, eat kind of guy. And again, like I said, he's able to kind of be in the present moment, which makes him be able to figure things out with the material available. Antonio is a little bit more moralistic and a little more preoccupied with the book. I would say Voight knows what you're supposed to do, but he does what he has to do. Antonio is more focused on doing what he's supposed to do. And both are valid viewpoints, and I think that's an important part of what the show is. Antonio should be Antonio. Like Voight, he doesn't want a unit of 7 Voights. He's got each different person.
I think having all 3 shows on the same night is something that I don't think has ever been done before. So I'm excited to see how it does. You know, we have incredible fans and loyal fans each for each show. So I think this is a great opportunity to, you know, because like Dick Wolf always says, these shows are seamless and they can intertwine at any time, you know, and so I think it's going to be something fun for the fans. One Chicago, to me, means like a brotherhood, you know, and sisterhood. You know, it's all of us together. We each have different shows, but we're really, in essence, one big show. And the most important thing is that at the heart of all our shows, the main star is Chicago, Chicago Med, Chicago PD, Chicago Fire. You know, so. You know, One Chicago just brings everyone together, and that includes our fans, and that includes all the real professionals that we're portraying on these shows. It includes them as well. Season 5 ended with just a terrible tragedy. The intelligence unit is a family, and one of the family members was lost. So and how it happened is something that really has rocked the unit. We each have our own kind of opinions, but we're a family, and it hurts. It's like any family. When you lose a family member, it's you deal with it, and how you move on. The unit has to go on. The intelligence unit has to move on, but it's how we move on, which is what we're dealing with now. In season 6. There was a questionable shooting where my character Antonio arrived just too late and didn't really see exactly what happened. And Antonio, he's going to tell it like it is. He's going to tell the truth, no matter how much it might hurt. And that's something that he's dealing with this season, questioning, should he have crossed the line? Should he have maybe said something different? But Antonio's the kind of guy that represents many police officers out there that they try to stay and do the right thing and keep everybody doing it by the book and being honest, because once you cross that line, he wouldn't be able to live with himself. So that's something that, we'll see. What did Antonio really tell the higher ups? That's something that we'll be diving into in season 6. Well, I think having Anne Heche on the show playing Brennan is just so cool. When I saw that she was going to be coming on, I said, "Wow, that's awesome." So she, I've had some scenes with her, and she's really incredible. She's a powerhouse, and she comes in strong. So that said, we all know Voight's a powerhouse, and it's his unit. So there might be a little clashing of the heads there, but it's going to make for great entertainment. We left off with the higher ups doing an investigation. So that's something that I believe is going to carry on through into season 6, and the truth will be revealed. This is Voight's unit, and from time to time, Antonio's asked to take over, and Antonio's got a totally different approach. We all want the same thing. Everyone in the unit, from Voight on down, we all want to clean up the city as much as we can. We want to do the right thing by the community. We love Chicago, but we have different ideas as to how to get that done. So when Antonio's in charge, just like when Voight's in charge, it's his way, and if you don't like it, you can sit it out or whatever, but it's his way, and it in particular it rubs one of our members of the team the wrong way. And it's two guys that are trying. I'm talking about Ruzek. Two guys that are trying to. You see at the end of season 5, Ruzek and Antonio kind of weren't seeing eye to eye on how Voight was going about things and wanting to handle what happened to Elias, or Alvin. I'm mixing up characters and names, but so Ruzek and Antonio are kind of bumping heads, but they're dealing with mourning their own different ways, and they want the same thing, but sometimes when tragedy happens like that to a tight-knit family, there's a big cloud that kind of hangs over and foggies up your vision, and that happens to all of us, so it's something that they're working hard to try to work through. I don't really get into trying to find out where Antonio's going in the season. I like to be surprised just as much as the audience. I get a script and I'll read it and go, okay, I'm not shot, I'm not this, I'm not that. He's still here. So I kind of like I love that what Eric LaSalle and Rick Ead are doing, and Dick Wolf and all the producers and all the writers that we have are pretty incredible. So I let them do their thing and I do my thing.
I dig that. I think it's cool. We're in the binging generation, from what I understand, right? And so with the way that audiences now just love to binge everything, I like to think we might as well just give them what they want. You just give them the whole One Chicago World on one Wednesday. Why not? Why not One Chicago Wednesday? Props from Wardrobe help a lot, especially this season. I'm doing my best to add, soft idiosyncrasies to Atwater that just inform where he's evolved and grown, right? So, one of the things that I've done with props that the world might not even notice is picking up like little books, right? So Atwater's reading little philosophy books that's kind of helping him, I guess, evolve, right? This season for Atwater is what I like to call Atwater's awakening, right? Where the lines between the blue and the black are a little bit more blurry, and we get to watch him struggle with, with that morality, right? Is he more down for his people? Is he more down for his partners? And I like to think that struggle or that war that's going on with Atwater is going to be pretty dope. The end of the season is a direct correlation to the beginning of this season. Naturally, I think we're still like in the same energy, I think it's damn near the same week or a few days, so to speak. So I think everybody is still pretty emotionally scarred or frustrated from a lot of things. We start off this first episode with, with a funeral for Alinsky, where we have to be there for him, and I think you start to see the insight of how the rest of the season is going to pan out for the rest of our characters, right? I think we all kind of take Voight's lead a little bit, but naturally we all have to deal with it our own way, and I'm interested to see that from all of us, especially Atwater. I think, like I said, with his awakening this season, I think Alinsky's death was another big blow for Atwater, where he's like, wow, this is a job that I took to protect, my family and those that are closest to me. And I think the more he sees the job evolve, the more he kind of sees it destroying the world around him. And so I think that's just one more red flag, among others for Atwater. So so I'm interested. I think that's going to be a dance that we're going to enjoy, them delivering every Wednesday. We find these characters for Voight to play off of that I think every character kind of a little bit brings out different pieces of Voight, right? And so I'm interested to see with Alinsky's death and with the questionable kill shot and with, season 6 being as amplified as it is, I'm interested to see what she brings, what small part of Voight she brings out of him. It might be vulnerability, it might be, it might be soft, love interest, or I don't know, it's hard to say. I think Antonio adds that necessary antithesis that the show needs in order for us to, come back from the wild side every now and then, because it's a delicate dance between both of those things, right? Good, bad, ugly, all of that stuff. And Antonio's a dope addition of, the brighter side of things. I think we're going to see Atwater, and what he's learning about morality and things of that nature, like, light and darkness. I think we're going to see Atwater grow into some stuff. I'm interested to see what situations specifically, might make him make certain decisions. But at the end of the day, I think we can expect a lot more from Atwater, more than we've probably seen in the past, whether it's from you know, how much he's learned about love, how much he's learned about his job and what he likes or dislikes about it, his culture and what he likes and dislikes about it. Yeah, we're gonna see him grow for a fact.
Well, the show ended with, shouldn't be a spoiler alert, but some fans, because they didn't see Al die, think he's alive. Unfortunately, Al is dead. And what you come back to is a fractured team dealing with it in their own ways. I mean, imagine having a tragedy and being stuck in a room in this bullpen with like 7 or 8 people that you work with, and everyone's dealing with it in different ways. And there's actually a couple people who come to blows a couple times. So that's really interesting. We've never had the team so fractured in such different spots emotionally. So I'm Team Voight, so in my mind it's not questionable. So there's a bunch, like I think Antonio and maybe Halstead are sort of Team Antonio, but I'm Team Voight, because you know what? Burgess is now, can I say badass? She's like, you know, she's like Lady Voight, in my opinion, which is really not something I want to picture. But yes, she's Lady Voight, I would say. So I think that she's in lockstep with what he does. So Antonio's sort of by the book to get things done, and it's like the angel and the devil on your shoulder, which I think is good. It's really good to have in a team. You have Antonio telling you to do the right way and Voight telling you to do it whatever way, whatever means are necessary to an end. And they both want to get the bad guy, but Voight's willing to do anything to do it, and Voight's not, and Antonio's not. So it's really interesting to have those two influences in your life. So what I love in female characters are women who are allowed to sort of be feminine and be strong. Sometimes I think we lack that. They have to be all strong or all feminine. And in our first sort of meeting of Brennan, who's played by Heche, she's applying lipstick and talking to Voight. I love that. Like, I love that image. Like, I rule you, Voight, but I also don't mind wearing a perfect shade of red. So I love her. And actually, in episode 4, I'm sort of going to get caught up in sort of adoration of her and get torn between her and Voight. So I'm really excited to work with Anne and Jason in that sort of way. I do think Voight will be under investigation, but I kind of always think that what makes the show interesting is that there's always this shadow of the police department coming down on Voight for good. So that's always there. It's just really present in the beginning of season 6. Darker, for sure. I remember like an episode where I was like twisting my hips to like direct traffic, and now I'm slapping people. So, you know, I've come a long way. I'm interested to explore that. I think it's important that like at not all moments am I this sort of angry person, but I think I was very close to Al, and that emotion, that anger is really close to the surface right now. In episodes 1 through 3, you don't really see those emerge. I'm just kind of working with the team, but we'll see when certain situations arise how this sort of darker version of Burgess deals with.
You know, for Ruzek, at the end of last season, he kind of lost one father figure in Al being killed, and then now Voight, his future's in question because of the questionable kill, questionable shooting, and you know, and that's his other father figure, you know, outside of his actual father, and you know, and Voight, his future kind of hangs in the balance, and Antonio's word has a lot to play in that, and so you know, Antonio and Ruzek end on kind of there's friction at the end of last season, and that continues into this season because Adam doesn't necessarily agree with how Antonio's handling the whole situation. Ruzek, he likes the way that Voight gets the job done, you know, and as much as he cares about Antonio and respects Antonio, I think that at the end of the day, he's in the Voight camp of how we approach problems. I think that part of the reason he got into the unit, Ruzek got into the unit, is because he's brash and he acts on impulse, and kind of rush through a door. And Antonio's a little more careful. He's a little more by the book. He's a little more thoughtful in how he approaches problems. And, they're just two completely different people in their job. And so, yeah, it causes conflict. He had more insight into everything that was going on behind the scenes as far as Denny Woods trying to screw over Voight and screw over the unit than I think a lot of the other guys in the unit were privy to. I had a lot more information. So, I think that his world kind of fell out beneath him a little bit. All of these things. On the one hand, he's seen the job get done the way that Voight does things. He's seen the job get done and done well. But on the other hand, the way that Voight does things is what got Al into a situation where he was stabbed, got himself into a situation where he might lose his job and go to jail, and all of us into a situation where we might be implicated in that in some way. I think he's maybe a little less confident in exactly how things should be done at this point than he had been before. Voight's very much in the same situation. I mean, we're, 4 or 5 days after the end of last season. I mean, I believe the first scene is us kind of gathering together and having a drink and toasting to Al. And we start working in a new case, but all of that is hanging over it. I mean, the episode is all leading up to us burying our friend, so it's a pretty hyper-emotional episode. I think we all agree that when the coppers come up and say that they like the show, or that they're proud of what we're doing or happy with what we're doing, that's the best compliment we get. These stories are all based on real stories that police officers come in and share with our writers. And while they are not obviously cooker-cutty versions of those stories, they are inspired by real stories. And we've got our tech guy, also associate producer Brian Luch, who's on set all of the time and, is there to remind you of the emotional attachment you should have with kicking down this door, what's behind it, and, what the story is based on, where it comes from. And, so it's most important to me that we get that right. And sometimes it's easy to get lazy and kind of forget about that. You kick the door and you do another take and you do another take and you do another take. And it's a godsend to have him come in and remind us what the reality is of what we're talking about. And if we're projecting that reality and it's making the people that experience it in real life every day happy, then that makes me happy.
At the end of season 5, we are left. We've lost Olinsky, which is very devastating for the whole team. And there's a questionable kill shot with Voight that's kind of left everything hanging and up in the air. And we pick up season 6 right there, right on the heels of that, with the case going forward, and then Olinsky's funeral and all of that, which is very sad. Voight is having a bit of a hard go with it, for obvious reasons. And then, without giving anything away, certain things happen, and he overall takes care of the team and kind of goes back into his Voight, command, and takes charge of everything and makes sure that everything is done the way that it needs to be done when there's certain tension that starts to rise within the team, and he comes in and takes care of it. The two different approaches in kind of leading the team between Voight and Antonio is very different. I think Voight has a lot more of a direct approach to it, and kind of more of an intense approach to it and direct. And Antonio takes a little bit more of like a patient, do your thing sort of approach to it. And each way of doing it has different reactions with different people. At the end of last season, we got to know a little bit more about Hailey, with in her past with Garrett and with different situations, and we uncovered a little bit more about her story. And so I'm excited to see what this new season will bring to share. There's still a lot that we don't know about her, and so I'm really excited to see what comes forward and what we get to know as far as her personal life goes and she has to bring to the table, which will be cool. I think that we'll know more about her, just getting to reveal and letting the audience into who she is. I think she's pretty mysterious and she keeps a lot close to her, and there's a reason for that. And so I'm pretty stoked to share it. I think it's very exciting. It'll be cool to have it all in one night and just have it all, like all the storylines just line up, and it'll be 3 hours of love and wonderfulness. It's a big family. I feel like the One Chicago family, for me, especially being the new kid that came in, all the fans, all the cast and the crew and everyone part of the whole One Chicago made me feel very welcome, very loved coming into this big family, and it's just a really cool community to be a part of.